Hey, what's up guys? My name is Danny and I am a car designer that have worked with Fiat Chrysler, Renault Nissan, and Frank Stephenson. I want to show you guys how to sketch cars, and today I will be showing you how to sketch a side view. The side view is the most important view, and in my opinion, it's one of the hardest views. It's difficult because you have to have an idea of what the front, the top, and the rear look like. The side view is the best place to start because you can figure out all the other views later. Remember, design is a constant back and forth. What I mean by this is once you finish the side view and you go to the front view, you may want to change something in the side view. So it's okay to go back and forth, remember. So it's a constant back and forth until you get something you like. So for this sketch, you will need to have some basic understanding of perspective drawing. I will attempt to show you a very simple one-point perspective technique. It will be a loose sketch, so the perspective will not be 100% perfect. Okay, so the image size I'll be using is 2500 high by 5000 pixels wide at 150 dpi. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the perspective, and Procreate's an awesome program. It has the perspective, and the way you do it is you go to Canvas, you turn on the drawing guide, and then you edit the drawing guide, and then at the bottom you can see I selected perspective, and I put the perspective at roughly 2/3 from the bottom of 1/3 from the bottom of the page, roughly. Then I changed the color of the lines to black and I press done. So most beginners don't think to add perspective to a side view because they have yet to understand 3D. Whenever you look at a car in real life, it's never a perfect side view. There's always some perspective. The only time you get a perfect view of a side view is in a 3D program, and that's not realistic at all. To really sell your sketch, some slight perspective will really add a bit of realism. If it's just a flat 2D sketch, it's just boring. Once you set the perspective, you gotta start drawing boxes where your wheels are gonna be. Yeah, so now it's time to establish the wheelbase. And since I'm drawing a sedan, you can see that the front wheel is the beginning of the wheel, and the rear wheel is in the back. And then you can see that I fit 3 wheels in the middle. Roughly, you can go 2 3/4 wheels. So to make it look more extravagant, I've added 3 wheels, longer, and the longer it is, the more expensive it is to make. It means more materials. So once you establish the wheelbase, you want to draw perspective lines to the vanishing point. Now, I don't normally do this. This is a really tedious way to do it, and so that's why you can see that I'm just kind of struggling a little bit with it. What I normally, I draw this side view so often that it's just so second nature to me. So like all of this is all in my head. So if you guys just continue drawing and just sketching side views after side view after side view, all of this would just become second nature. It just becomes ingrained in you. So you don't even need to set up a perspective every time. So here's a technique that I just came up with on the fly, and it's to, I guess, make like perfect boxes. And what I did was I took the selection tool and made a rectangle, as you can see, that's around the wheelbase. Alright, so I select the layer, then I fill it with red, I turn down the opacity down to roughly 30%, and now with the brush tool, I drew a line from the edge of the boxes, the corner of the boxes, to the vanishing point. If you guys draw a line and then hold the pen down for like a second, and then it will make a straight line, so you can go from point to point. So yeah, now I have the vanishing point lines that goes from edge to edge of the box. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select the red box copy it, duplicate it, and now I'm gonna try to like resize it to make it seem like it's the other side of the wheel, if that makes any sense. So essentially, I'm making a box. So I'm gonna resize it to make it a box. So I'm trying to line it up to the perspective lines. You want to make sure the edge is lined up to the lines. So you gotta kind of just eyeball it a little bit. Again, this is not a perfect perspective tutorial. There are much better tutorials for perfect perspective out there. Scott Robinson does some really nice tutorials. He has a whole library, so I suggest you guys go check out his stuff if you guys want to draw a perfect perspective every time. But for this tutorial, it's just to get a general idea of perspective. So again, if you guys want to look for a perfect perspective, go check out Scott Robinson. Yeah, there you have it. You have some boxes now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the red layers so you guys can see the boxes better. And then I'm going to lower the opacity of the perspective lines. Okay, so now on the new layer, I took the pen tool and I did a really crappy circle. But again, Procreate has a cool tool where if you do the crappy circle and you hold down the pen for a second, it makes it into an oval. And if you put your other finger down on the screen, it makes a perfect circle. So now I'm trying to make the circle fit inside the box. Again, like, none of this is perfect perspective, and I'm just trying to get an idea, and I'm just trying to show you guys how to set up a quick perspective. So as you can see, it's it creates a cylinder here now, and then it creates a cylinder here. This line right here where my mouse is pointing is going to be the other side of the car, the other side of the wheel. Since this is a sedan that's really low to the ground, you're not gonna be able to see that. So I didn't draw wheels over there on that side. Okay, so on this new layer, I started with the wheels. I never bothered with the perfect wheel design to begin with, so I just kind of do a little scribble like this to indicate where the wheels go. So again, the scribbles, if you can see, they're not really just scribbles. They're actually kind of slightly pointing towards the vanishing point. And this is to give a sense of perspective. While you're doing all this, you're trying to give a sense of perspective to add more punch to your sketch. Okay, and it's time to do a simple silhouette. So again, this is going to be a super long hood GT sedan kind of thing, like a Maserati maybe. Super expensive, so there's probably like a massive V12 in the front or something. Now it's time for some body lines. Most beginners will at this point just start drawing random lines in relation to nothing. An expert will begin the same, but try to create some sort of relationship with the wheels and the overall silhouette. You always want to keep the wheels in mind when you're laying down lines. Also, just to add a bit of stance to the sketch, I like to add a few lines to make it look like it's stretching a surface between the wheels and the lines. And that's really important. It adds a sense of stance to a side view, and that's what makes it less static. You don't want to just be a flat like no form type of thing. So these little lines, they are not random lines, they are tension lines, and it's to add tension between each point that you want to add. You have to think about the surface stretching like a cloth, or muscles under a skin, how it kind of has tension to it where it connects from one point in your bone to another point. So at this point, now I'm going to do a new sketch on top of that first sketch I made. I lower the opacity down to roughly 30%. made a new layer, and now I'm using red to show you guys that I'm doing a new sketch. Again, you want to play with these tension lines. You want to move them around. You want to play with thick and thin. You don't want them to be 50-50. Like you can see that this line right here is not as long as this one. So this one, it travels further and this one's shorter. So it adds a bit of tension right here in this corner and gives it a sense of speed. So here you can see that I've added some movement to the whole form. The rear end is slightly longer than the front end. Normally you want to like make it longer, noticeably longer, so that way it adds some movement. But in this case, since the nose dives down so low, the general feel of this front end and this back end, how it's such a massive form here. There's a lot of it's a thick, this line here from this point to this point, it's longer than this line to this line. So it's smaller and bigger. So you have more form back here. So it gives a sense of more in the back than the front. And that's what you want to play with. You want to play with that relationship of a little bit of form here, and then over here you have more form. So like another relationship to think about is, so you can see that the distance from this wheel to the ground, right, is almost like the height of the whole body of the car. And then the cabin in relationship to the height of the wheels is lower. So that gives it a lot sportier look. You don't want to go too tall or anything. I know that, if you're an engineer, you're trying to fit people inside, but for this sketch, you're trying to sell your sketch, you're trying to sell your design, and you want to capture people's emotion. You want to capture your design director's emotion and be like, yeah, hey, this is the theme that I feel like will move forward, and it looks really cool, it looks really dynamic. I think we can make it fit on a Maserati V12 of some sort. Okay, so I made a new layer, and I lowered the opacity of the other layer, and then I merged it down, and now I'm sketching over it again. And now what I'm doing is I'm blocking out the light where I think the light will reflect, or where the big puddles of light are. If you've seen this channel before, you've heard me talk about puddles of light. And you see, like, that's a really interesting shape. It's like this V shape that kind of points backwards. Basically what I'm doing is these are all the surfaces that will catch light. You got the rear haunch, and then you got the front fenders, and now I'm doing the light catcher on the side. And the interesting thing I'm doing here is, I have a simple light catcher like that, and then I add this kind of light catcher that kind of goes with it at an angle. So I don't know how it'll read in a render yet, but I just had the idea to do that real quick. And these are light catchers for the wheels, where the highlights are for the wheels. Then you get the highlight for the rear end. Now I'm in the hue and saturation setting, and I lower the saturation down to like nothing, or made it black, and made a new layer so I can finish so I could finish off doing more lines. So when you design, you're kind of experimenting, you're trying new things, and you don't want to be linear. You don't want to be like, okay, you start with design and like this is it and it's done. No, you want to try out different things, different forms, different lines. You can see I did one type of line on the sketch before, and now I came up with a different line, and I just found something that I thought was really nice. Yeah, when you're drawing these lines, so when you're drawing these lines, you want to add speed to it. You want to be as, you know, if you could do it in one stroke, it's better. So that's why you can see me doing one stroke, erase, undoing, erasing, one stroke, erasing, undoing, and then, just repeating it until I get the right tension for the line. So again, as you can see, I'm making changes to the form. Again, the idea behind the sketch is not a 100% functional sketch. It's not gonna have all the tires. It's not gonna have all the glass. It's generally just to come up with some really cool form that matches the package of the car generally, or just roughly. It's not 100% perfect. But again, if you're able to capture the design director's feelings, or whoever your boss is, and make them say, hey, I like the sketch, I think there's something here worth exploring, and that'll be your next in to the next step, right? They'll pick your sketch. Now it's your job to get that sketch and put it on to the right package. I drew the center line of the car, and then this blob of light here represents maybe the A pillar or a theoretical, and you want it to match each other. Maybe you want it to be slightly different, but this is the real center line. It might be higher, and then this is the theoretical center line, or not center line, but the theoretical that is like the A pillar. So as you guys know, when you guys look at a car from the front, the roof kind of bows a little bit, and from this point, if you guys look at it from the front, it bows a little bit to here, and that's for several reasons. Of course, it looks better, and also for production methods. When you pull out a mold from metal or plastic or whatever, you want it to have some volume, because flat surfaces will stick and it'll mess up the mold. So there you have it. That's the tutorial on how to do a side view for a GT sports car. Let me know what you guys think. This form might be kind of crazy, so if you guys want a much more simplified design, I can simplify it even further. Maybe not have so much form change and make it much more simple. Again, I want to thank you guys for watching my videos. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving a like. And I will be back with more videos.